Thank you for joining us. You're watching QTV with the news. My name is Diana Sombwe. We take a look at stories making headlines. President Edgar Lungu has officially opened the third session of the 12th National Assembly. Chinese ambassador to Zambia, Li Ji, has described as redundant concerns that Zambia's cooperation with China will increase its debt burden. And now the news in detail. President Edgar Lungu has officially opened the third session of the 12th National Assembly, and President Lungu has ignored calls that he discloses Zambia's actual debt in his speech to open parliament. President Lungu, however, says the debt Zambia has contracted was necessary to support government's ambitious agenda of laying a solid foundation for the future growth of the country's economy. Speaking in Parliament, President Lungu said this is already being appreciated through construction of roads, schools and hospitals, which he says are critical for the well-being of the people. President Lungu has assured the nation that the government is, on the other hand, committed to ensuring a speedy return to low risk of debt distress and maintaining the debt in sustainable levels. He also disclosed that the 2019 national budget, which the Minister of Finance will present in this session of the House, will build on policies as outlined in the Economic Stabilization Grow Program. President Lungu says that next year's national budget will also build on policies as outlined in the 7th National Development Plan. The head of state has since urged members of Parliament to support the 2019 national budget and appreciates its details when it is presented in the House.
The debt stock and domestic areas of the country have, in the recent past, been topical. It should, however, be emphasized that the contraction of this debt was necessary to support our ambitious agenda of laying a solid foundation for the future growth of our economy for our people. This is being appreciated through roads, schools, and hospitals being constructed, which are critical to our people's well-being. I wish to assure the nation through this House that government is committed to ensuring a speedy return to low risk of debt distress and maintaining the debt within sustainable levels. Mr. Speaker, the Honorable Minister of Finance will soon be presenting to this august House in the 2019 national budget. The budget will build on policies as outlined in the Economic Stabilization Growth Program and the 7th National Development Plan. I urge the honorable members of Parliament, particularly those on my left, to take keen interest, to understand and appreciate the details of the 2019 budget and to support it when it comes before this House.
President Lungu's speech to Parliament was under the theme Working Together to Achieve Vision 2030. And President Lungu has assured the nation that government will continue implementing the e-voucher system in the administration of the Farmer Input Support Program, FISIP. President Lungu says this is for the improved efficiency, transparency and accountability in the management of the program. He states that for the fact that FISIP is not for all farmers, he urges the private sector to complement government's efforts by making inputs readily available to farmers countrywide.
The nation that the government will continue implementing the e-voucher system for improved efficiency, transparency and accountability in the administration of Farmer Input Support Program. I haven't heard anyone say question. Mr. Speaker, I'm enjoying that. Mr. Speaker, the Farmer Input Support Program is not meant to cater for all our farmers. I therefore urge the private sector to complement government's effort by making inputs readily available to our farmers countrywide at affordable cost. Mr. Speaker, in the fisheries subsector, aquaculture production grew by 61% from 10,500 metric tons between January and June 2015 to 16,910 metric tons over the same period this year. The growth was due to increased fish production by both commercial and smallholder farmers. The nation.
Former Foreign Affairs Minister Harry Kalaba has charged that President Lungu's speech to open Parliament has not given any hope to the Zambian people. Mr. Kalaba, who is also Bahati Member of Parliament, thinks that President Lungu's speech lacked urgency. He says owing to the many economic and political challenges Zambia is currently faced with, President Lungu should have outlined measures that will be put in place to save the country from collapsing. Mr. Kalaba has, however, commended President Lungu for admitting that only 31% of Zambians have access to electricity and further urging the Minister of Energy to up their game. He states that he also expected that the President would urge the Minister of Water Development to address the issue of poor sanitation and reticulation around the country.
I laughed. I honestly laughed. The president's speech lacked agency. You know, it was an ordinary speech. You know, in extraordinary times like we are now, you look for extraordinary methods. And His Excellency the President, a good man as he is, should have understood that this country is at the verge of collapse. This country requires urgent measures. And I liked the part on energy where he admitted that at least only 31% of Zambians are having access to electricity, and he urged the Minister of Energy to up his skills. I would have thought the President should have done the same in terms of water reticulation, across the country. You know, even the sustainable development goals that have been outlined, you realize that Zambia still falls short of all those things, you know. So it is a sad scenario. We expected the speech to provide hope. He didn't. We expected the speech to talk about research and development. He didn't. And he talked about the creation of districts. He should have talked about the creation of industries otherwise. Yeah. But I laughed.
The Opposition United Party says it finds the speech President Edgar Lungu made in Parliament to have been empty. UPND Deputy Spokesperson Cornelius Mwetwa says President Lungu's speech did not give any hope to the Zambian youth. Mr. Mwetwa, who is also Choma Member of Parliament, has told Q News in an interview that President Lungu's speech also failed to address key national issues that are of concern currently. He has referred to the Constitution Amendment Bill, electoral reforms and national dialogue as some of the issues his party had hoped the President's speech should have touched on. Mr. Mwetwa says it is these issues that the UPND thinks are also key in the governance of the country. He states that for the fact that President Lungu's speech excluded many national issues, it's almost impossible for him to find anything of substance to respond to.
Fair comment is that it was a flat, speech by the president. The citizens were expecting a lot from this presidential address, particularly on key issues that people were anticipating, issues to do with the constitutional amendments, which he never made mention about, which are key going forward in terms of the governance of this country, issues to do with reforms, to do with the Electoral Commission. As we are heading towards 2021, we expect, electoral reforms to amend the electoral law so that we can begin to look forward to 2021 with confidence that we shall have a peaceful, and well-regulated election. That didn't come through. Issues to do with national dialogue. He just made one sentence to say that he is happy that the young people, the youth political leaders are beginning to agree on working together. I expected him to be very profound on the issue of national dialogue, to be able to tell the nation his position, the position of government and his position as president regarding national dialogue, which the president of the UPND, HH, as a major stakeholder, has been making very clear to the nation that we want dialogue now. He skirted around, he didn't speak about dialogue, he just said we need dialogue. He didn't commit himself to that dialogue and even to give it time frame. So we think that on the key expectations that we wanted to hear him pronounce himself, issues to do with constitutional amendments, issues to do with electoral reforms, issues to do with national dialogue, issues to do with the rule of law, governance, the issues of human rights in this country, issues to do with fundamental freedoms of citizens. He was conspicuously, mute on those, and I think that he's missed the target. Fair comment is...
Chinese ambassador to Zambia, Li Ji, has described as redundant concerns that Zambia's strengthening practical cooperation with China will increase the debt burden. Addressing the media in Lusaka, Mr. Lee said his country insists on putting the interests of its people and Zambians in first place while boosting cooperation for the people's well-being. Mr. Lee says the Chinese government will deliver financial support to projects that are more sustainable and can promote economic growth. He states that this is in addition to increasing people's well-being for good job creation and economic efficiency. And Mr. Lee says Zambia stands a better chance of synergizing with the construction of the Build and Road Initiative, BRI, owing to its abundant mineral and agricultural resources.
Now, there are some concerns and voices domestically here in Zambia and abroad that strengthening practical cooperation with China will increase the debt burden of Zambia. This worry, to me, I think, is redundant. China always insists to put the interests of the Chinese and Zambia people in the first place and boost cooperation for people's well-being and benefits people with cooperative agreements. China has always adhered to the principle of mutual respect and win-win cooperation and stay committed to the vision of consultation, cooperation, and benefit for all.
Minister of Home Affairs Stephen Kampyongo says the recent beating to death of a Zambian by 2 Chinese nationals in Mungwi will not affect the bilateral relations between Zambia and China. Mr. Kampyongo has, however, emphasized that the law will take its course on the 2 Chinese nationals as there is no sacred cows regarding those who break the law with impunity. He was commenting on an incident that happened earlier this week where police arrested 2 Chinese nationals working on the Kusefia Pangwena Arena site for allegedly beating to death a Zambian national who works at the same area as a guard. And Mr. Kampyongo says the crimes committed by a few foreign individuals will not affect the bilateral ties between whichever country they are from and Zambia. He says there are some foreign nationals who are incarcerated and who have been incarcerated before, but that such incarcerations have not affected the bilateral ties between their countries and Zambia.
In terms of prisoner exchange, we facilitate the exchange of prisoners so that the prisoners would go and serve their sentence back in their country. But then only happens where we have got that memorandum of understanding. But those that we don't have, they have to serve. And when they finish their sentence, we deport them as it were. In terms of prison.
Chief Mukobeda of the Ila-speaking people in Namala district says he expects government to allocate more funding to the livestock and fisheries sectors in the 2019 national budget. Chief Mukobeda holds the view that these sectors can only record growth if they are well financed. He says a chiefdom like his, which is endowed with abundant water bodies and fish, can see improvement in nutrition and income at household level if more funds allocated were to fisheries. Chief Mukobela has told Q News that due to lack of funding, however, fish and livestock in his chiefdom are depleting.
Our expectation is maybe if we can have more funding to agriculture, so that maybe we have activities to do with the livestock. You see ourselves, I'm talking from my chiefdom now, we are livestock keeping oriented people. Now if we can have more funding in agriculture, on livestock, fisheries and livestock, then definitely those people at least in a village, there at least one is able to keep one cow or so. Then they have milk, they have all what they need to keep their families alive. And then there we have fish in abundance, we have natural rivers, we have natural dams, and if that ministry is properly funded, then we will improve, because the fish in the rivers are depreciating. In fact, they are almost finishing. So if there are which are deliberate programs to revamp the fish population in the rivers in Dambozi, then some people will be able to get fish and sell. So they will have nothing like saying we don't have money for our school-going children. They will take their children to school.
The Development Bank of Zambia, DBZ, has expressed concern that failure to pay back loans on time by small and medium enterprises, SMEs, is frustrating its growth. DBZ Managing Director Jacob Lushinga has told QTV News in an interview that it is displeasing that the failure by SMEs to pay back loans has reached alarming levels in the country. Mr. Lushinga says such a situation is a hindrance to economic development. He states that there is need for the SMEs to acquire loans from the bank to start paying back what they borrow on time. Mr. Lushinga says this is in order that other SMEs in need of financial support can also have chance to access funds from the bank.
Obviously, the essence of project financing or advancing of loans to businesses, enterprises, is to facilitate investment. And when these loans are given out, we expect people to pay back, plus interest, so that we can roll over this facilitation to a new set of investors, a new set of enterprises, and therefore that entrenches development in any country. What we are having now is a protracted, frustrating period of people, enterprises getting these loans and then not paying back. The extent to which they are going to refuse to pay back is alarming and very frustrating, and therefore a stain on investment facilitation itself. They would rather spend 2-3 years in court just so that they don't pay back. They would rather frustrate by, stripping the assets that were obtained for them with these loans just so that they don't pay back. And so that was the crux of my contribution in terms of investment facilitation, and part of the remedy would therefore be information sharing, information infrastructure in an economy like ours, where we get to know about these enterprises, where we ensure that enterprises that behave like that do not participate. Otherwise, they keep on stifling the little resources that we have to people as loans. Obviously,
3 unidentified males have been burnt beyond recognition, while a 42-year-old truck driver escaped with injuries after 2 vehicles burst into flames following an accident in Kalomo. Both the truck's horse and a chaser are also beyond recognition. The accident occurred at about 6:30 hours, 5 kilometers south of Kalomo, and the said vehicles were coming from Livingstone. Driver of the chaser with 2 passengers inside was overtaking the truck when he cut in at a short distance, forcing the truck to hit the chaser from the rear. The truck registration number 1395 AF052098AB was driven by Ekwas Shito, 42, of house number 10065, Vulobo in Zimbabwe. Both vehicles rolled into a river drainage and burst into flames due to the impact, but the lone truck driver jumped off and sustained a fractured leg and serious burns. After inspecting both vehicles, it was discovered that the truck had an improvised big tank full of petrol and yet it's diesel propelled. The 3 bodies have been taken to Kalomo District Hospital mortuary, while the truck driver has been evacuated to Livingstone. This is according to a statement made available to Q News by Southern Province Police Commissioner Bonnie Kapeso. Chief Chikanta of Kalomo District in Southern Province has called for a clear policy surrounding the export of goats to the Saudi Arabian market. The traditional leaders observes that goat farmers are looking forward to the start of the export program of the stock to Saudi Arabia, but they are, however, ignorant about the process. Speaking during the goat farming Indaba in Lusaka, Chief Chikanta says that there is need to avoid the experience of Ethiopia, where all its goats and sheep exported for the UK was rejected for not following the standards required. Meanwhile, Chief Chikanta says that there is need to double the current goats and sheep population in the country if the country is to sustain the market demand. He has noted that the 4 million number of goats and sheep countrywide are insignificant, especially with the growing demand for their meat.
Much has been announced about goat export, and with excitement well received by the livestock sector of Zambia's farmers. However, there are many questions that remain unanswered. Many farmers are highly interested, but they have no clue as to whether the government has published a roadmap to the commercial scale goat production, meaning we are not sure as farmers whether our government, in addition to the pronouncements of an existing market on the goats, whether government has a roadmap which we can follow as farmers in order to enhance the goat production and also the quality, to improve the quality of our goats. We take a leaf from Ethiopia.
And speaking at the same event, goat breeding expert Bafana Moyo has called on the general public to move from the perception of looking at goat and sheep farming as that of the poor people to a business. Mr. Moyo says Zambia is failing to exhaust the current available market due to such perceptions.
And when we consider this value addition, Zambia will realize much needed profit from the goats. Many of us, we see these skins being thrown, and all what we're interested in is the meat. I think Zambia, we have been so wasteful, and we've been losing out on the much needed resources. So may we not undermine this humble beginning. Looking the way we have come, the number is we're so few, but at the end of the day, we'll be the champions of the better change that Zambia needs. Let's not look at how many people are talking about the goat business. Be the change that is going to attract others to see that for sure we've been losing out. And
Campaign for Female Education Comfort Board Advisory and Consultant Christian Mushibwe says there has been an improvement in the number of female re-entries into schools in the country. Speaking at the Campaign for Female Education Comfort Stakeholders Validation meeting, Dr. Mushibwe said statistics show 50.6% female re-entries have been recorded from 2007 to 2016, which has demonstrated girls' increased access to education. Dr. Mushibwe says there has been an improvement to some extent in the way the re-entry policy is being implemented, as the percentage of re-entry policy has increased from 2007 to 2016 from 34% to 46% at primary school level. She adds that the numbers of girls that have benefited from the policy should be reason for its continuation despite any bottlenecks cited.
Position that is usually encouraged by our cultural stand. In the country, like in the country of Zambia, we've got two types of clans. We've got the patrilineal and we've got the matrilineal. Now, the patrilineal, although I'm not saying that they're the only ones that are encouraging early marriages, but these, if you study the patrilineal tribes, you find that the importance that they place on the girl child is so minimal. They would rather put a lot of importance on the male child. And so in this particular home where there is a boy and there's a girl, the parents would prefer that the girl is not educated, but the girl is given in marriage. And when the girl is given in marriage, whatever the girl is able to bring back in terms of whether it is a cow or whether it is a huge lobola, that in certain tribes is what is used to marry off the boy. Because the boy now will need the cows, isn't it? The boy now will need the money to be able to go and marry. The woman that boy marries is the one that is going to produce more children for that particular clan. And so such kind of clans, you discover that early marriage is quite encouraged. This position that
And Campaign for Female Education Board Chairman Dixon Mwansa says through funding from its supporting partners, 2,220 rural girls will be able to complete schools by the end of 2018. He adds that over 300,000 children, including over 30,000 rural girls, have gone through secondary school in some of the remotest areas where CAMFED operates.
2,220 rural girls will be able to complete school by the end of 2018, in addition to 29 young rural women who have graduated from various institutions of higher learning, and most of whom are in employment and plowing back in their own families and communities. We thank the donors for this. Many thanks go to you and to the rest of our donors, past and present, some of whom are here today, like DFID, Embassy of Ireland, the European Union, USAID, UNICEF, Bayport, and many others who have made it possible for CAMFED to impact positively the lives of over 300,000 children, including over 30,000 rural girls who have gone through secondary school in some of the remotest parts of Zambia, where CAMFED operates.
Andrew Piri, a man living with disability, has appealed to well-wishers to help him venture into any economic activity that will help him earn a living. Mr. Piri, a father of 2 and a 6-times amputee, has told QTV News in an interview that he is also having challenges to take care of his wife and 2 children due to his status. He says he is more than ready to do any form of work suitable for him to fend for his family. And Radio Phoenix Helpline Coordinator Elizabeth Pembe has appealed to well-wishers to help Mr. Piri acquire a new pair of artificial legs. She explains that Mr. Piri cannot use the previous artificial legs a well-wisher previously donated to him, as he just underwent another amputation. To end the news, we recap on the headlines. President Edgar Lungu has officially opened the 3rd session of the 12th National Assembly. And Chinese ambassador to Zambia, Li Ji, has described as redundant concerns that Zambia's cooperation with China will increase its debt burden. On that note, we come to the end of the news. From me, Diana Sumbwe, thank you for watching. God bless.